in all the garbage because it's wet and there's all this food and crap and all this other stuff there, and it's producing methane. So it's one of those big sources. And this is now being tapped and is being used to provide power for people on Staten Island, right? A lot of the landfills can be done in the same way. But then climate is going to change regardless. And so we have this issue, how are we going to adapt to the things that we can't change? Right, this is the Thames Barrier, which is downstream of London, which has been there for about 40 years now. And the idea is to prevent catastrophic flooding of London when there is a storm surge and a high tide at the same time. The number of times they expected it to be used was once or twice a year. Right now it's being used about 20 times a year. And I think this is a discussion that's going to be happening in New York Harbor. And in fact, it's already starting. You know, people are talking about putting up a barrage across the Verrazano, well, underneath where the Verrazano bridge is. And it might happen because Manhattan is, fortunately, much more valuable than Long Island, right? If you put up a barrier across the Narrows, the water that would have gone into New York Harbor stays on the other side. And so you trade off less flooding inside the harbor for slightly more flooding outside the harbor, right? Now that, you're outside the harbor, right? That's going to be a conversation, and there's going to be a lot of winners and losers in that conversation. But the biggest thing for us as scientists is kind of like these people here. They're looking out. I mean, these are Inuit hunters, and they're looking out at sea ice that used to be reliable, that they used to have expectations about, and they're seeing it disappear. And in a very real sense, the scientists in this topic are seeing our expectations about climate disappear in all sorts of other different fields. In sea level, in storm intensity, in heat waves, in ecosystem responses, in intense rainfall, in temperatures. And we're seeing things change. And it brings to mind this statement that Sherwood Rowland made. And Sherwood Rowland, he won the Nobel Prize for working out the chemistry of ozone depletion back in the 1970s. And when he got his Nobel Prize, he was talking about the science of ozone depletion. He made this point. He says, what's the use of having developed a science well enough to make predictions if, in the end, all we're willing to do is stand around and wait for them to come true? And that's as true for ozone depletion as it is for climate change. Scientists have become much more vocal and public about this for this precise reason, right? We have developed a science well enough to make predictions, and the predictions that we are making are alarming. And if all we're going to do is sit back and let these predictions come true just to validate, how brilliant our science was, that is a huge ethical failure. And so I'm here today to make it clear to you that we're not failing at that. Okay, so thank you very much. Thanks. Bob said you'd be an easy audience, so that was nice. I'm more than happy to take questions, and there's copies of the book, and if you want to come by a little bit later, you can. They're $15 a piece, so we can do that. So, okay, we'll start with you. We'll kind of go around in a second.
In your opinion, would the Earth still be one even without the modernization?
No.
Skeptics would say,
No. If you took away all the things that man is doing, we'd actually have cooled over the last 30 or 40 years.
But what do I say to the skeptics that say the Earth temperatures were rising before you had the colonization?
Yeah, no, they weren't.
Well, what they saw is it did seem to be
Oh, yeah, so there is natural ups and downs. Part